Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into one of the most fundamental ideas in human civilization, money. But as you're about to see, its history is a whole lot weirder and way more fascinating than you probably think. Okay, let's just jump right in. On the island of Yap in Micronesia, these giant stone discs, they're called rice stones, were used as money. And some of these things are huge. We're talking over 12 feet in diameter, weighing 4 tons. They're so big, it's almost impossible to move them. In fact, one of their most valuable stones isn't even on the island. It's sitting at the bottom of the ocean. And that right there, that's the central question for this entire explainer. I mean, if that rock counts as money, what are the real rules here? What is money really? The answer is going to take us on a journey from the dawn of trade to one of the most important ideas ever invented. So, to really get our heads around those rice stones, we need to rewind. We've got to go way back to the beginning, before money even existed, to a system that was much simpler and, well, a lot more frustrating. It's called barter. Super simple concept, right? You have something I want, I have something you want, and we trade. For thousands and thousands of years, this is how economies worked. You need a spear, I need a necklace, we swap. Everybody's happy. Well, happy in theory. In practice, barter has some major problems. Like, what if you need my spear, but I don't want your necklace? That's what's known as the coincidence of wants problem. And how many necklaces is one spear worth, anyway? 2? 10? And what if I only want half a spear? I can't exactly saw it in two. Plus, if what I'm trading is food, it could literally spoil before I even find someone to trade with. Humanity desperately needed a better way. And so, the first real solution emerged: commodity money. The idea was, instead of trading everything for everything else, societies would agree on one common item, a commodity that pretty much everyone valued, to use for all exchanges. And, some of their choices were pretty creative. The sheer variety of stuff people used is just incredible. You've got the oldest form of money we know of, cattle. In ancient Rome, soldiers were sometimes paid in salt. That's actually where we get the word salary. Over in medieval Finland and Russia, they used squirrel pelts. And get this, the paws and snouts were used as small change. In Siberia, you could pay for things with a literal brick of tea, which, you could also eat. And even today, in parts of Italy, some banks accept giant wheels of Parmesan cheese as collateral for loans. Seriously. And just to give you a sense of the value here, at one point in medieval Russia, the going rate was about 100 squirrel pelts for a single cow. Suddenly, a pocket full of squirrel snouts doesn't seem so silly after all, does it? Now, as useful as Parmesan and squirrel pelts were, they still had their issues. I mean, they're bulky, they're tough to divide, and they can spoil. So naturally, people turn to something better: metal. It's durable, you can easily divide it, and it definitely doesn't go bad. This led to a huge conceptual leap. Take ancient Egypt, for example. They used a unit of weight called the deben. It was about 90 grams. You could say a cow was worth, say, 50 deben of silver. But what's really fascinating here is that the actual silver often didn't even change hands. The deben became a pure unit of account, an abstract way to measure value itself. This was a massive improvement for sure, but it was still kind of clunky. Every single time you wanted to buy something, you had to bust out your scales, weigh out little bits of silver or copper, and maybe even test the metal to make sure you weren't getting ripped off. It was a huge hassle, and it slowed everything way down. The solution to this final nagging problem was an absolute stroke of genius. It was an invention that would change the world forever: the coin. So, around the 7th century BCE, in a kingdom called Lydia, that's modern-day Turkey, someone had this brilliant idea. What if we pre-weighed standard pieces of metal and stamped them with an official seal to guarantee them? Well, the idea took off like wildfire. It spread to Greece, to India, and beyond. Pretty soon, everyone was doing it, with Alexander the Great eventually becoming the first living ruler to actually put his own face on one. But this brings us to the most crucial question in this whole story. These first Lydian coins were made of something called electrum, a natural mix of gold and silver. So when the king put his official stamp on it, what exactly was he guaranteeing? The answer is probably not what you'd think, and honestly, it changes everything. Okay, so this is the real aha moment. When we analyze these ancient coins today, we find something truly astounding. The purity, so the amount of gold versus silver, it's all over the place. Some coins are just 30% gold, others are over 55%. But the weight? The weight is incredibly precise. Almost every single coin is within 2% of the standard. So what does that mean? The crucial point is this. The stamp was not a guarantee of how much gold was in the coin. Nope. It was a guarantee from the government that this coin would be accepted as a standard unit of value. It guaranteed its exchange value, not its intrinsic value. This was the birth of fiat money, money that has value simply because an authority says it does. And that brilliant idea, that's how we can finally understand our original mystery. Let's take this radical concept and connect it all the way back to those giant rocks on the island of Yap. You see, the rhinestones are the ultimate example of this whole principle. Their value has almost nothing to do with the physical rock itself. It's all based on their story. Who carved it? How difficult the journey was to bring it to the island? Who has owned it over time? I mean, one of the most famous stones was lost at sea, but since everyone agreed it was still down there, it continued to be used in transactions. Its value existed entirely in the shared oral history of the community. When you get right down to it, every form of money is just a system of collective belief. A rhinestone has value because the people of Yap agree on its story. A gold bar has value even if it sits in a vault untouched for decades, because we all agree it does. A dollar bill is really just a piece of paper, but it has value because a government guarantees it, and we all believe in that guarantee. And a digital currency has value because a network of users collectively believes that it does. It's all belief. So the entire history of money has really just been one long journey of abstraction. We went from trading a literal thing of value, like a cow, to a representative object, like a shell, to a standardized weight of metal, to a coin whose value is guaranteed by an authority, and finally to where we are today, where most of our money is just a number on a screen. It's purely an idea. Which leaves us with one final big thought. For thousands of years, we've been telling ourselves all these different stories about what has value, from cows and shells to stamped coins and digital bits. So if money is simply the story that we all agree to believe in, the really interesting question is, what story are we going to tell ourselves next?